Well, welcome back to the Mental Health Janitors, where we help you clean up the mess in your head. As always, I am Sergeant Q, and I am joined by my co-host, Doc Jess.
Thank you, Aaron. Sergeant Q.
And so today, we've got some really cool stuff for you guys today. Really cool new technology we're going to talk about when it comes to nutrition and mental health. And we're also going to talk about this idea of the negative bias. And we're going to change things up a little bit. Normally, you see Jess putting me through a therapy session. And so this time, I'm going to put her through a therapy session. And here's the challenge, you guys. From here until infinity, if I can make her cry on camera, she says nobody can ever make her cry. So if I make Doc Jess cry on camera, what do I get? $1,000? Is that what you said?
I don't have Sergeant Q money. Okay? I'm pretty confident that you will not be able to make me cry, but I don't know.
That's what
$100.
Okay,
$100.
$100.
That'll hurt my bank right now.
$100 donated to one of our favorite charities.
Okay,
how's that?
Got it.
So if I can make her cry, $100 donated.
Do we shake or dap on this?
Okay, so we will dap on. All right. So originally, I was just gonna, as soon as she said yes, I was just gonna punch her in the mouth, and then I win. But everybody said that was cheating, so
cheater.
I have to make her emotionally cry.
Yes.
Cry,
okay.
Right? And she said, "Oh, that's sexist." I said, "No, I'm equal opportunity here."
Oh gosh.
So back to our mental health. All right, it's so much fun doing this, Jess.
Yeah.
It really is. We have a lot of fun, as you guys can tell. I wanted to talk a little bit about an experience we had this weekend. So we did something really cool. And so, Jess, tell us about it. Tell us, what did we do on Sunday?
Yeah. So I got to accompany Sergeant Q and Q Missions to FOB Hope, which is Forward Operating Base Hope. And it's one of the Task Force 12 with the Seattle Seahawks. What do you call it? A veteran?
It's a community outreach, yeah.
Community outreach
that the
nonprofit.
Seahawks. So the Seahawks developed what's called the Task Force 12, and it's part of their community engagement. And so they selected 12 veteran nonprofits that were local grassroots to support. Q Missions, which is my nonprofit, is one of them. And I'm actually the chaplain for the entire organization. So they contacted us to go down and work with FOB Hope to help bring some hope and light into that community. So how did that go, Jess?
Yeah, it was incredible. So I didn't really know what to expect going into it. Like, hey, Jess, you want to go be part of a panel to talk to these homeless veterans? I'm like, sure, it sounds awesome. Let's go. And then we get there, and I got to go with really good friends of ours who are part of Q Missions and part of our veteran group, Marcus Cola and Nick Johnson. And I've known them for as long as I've known Sergeant Q. And so we've established a pretty good safe relationship with them. And so I always feel really comfortable and safe traveling with them and doing panels and events with them. And so I was like, okay, cool. That's a good squad. I'll go. And so we show up, and it's like this encampment, fenced in. And I see like 5 or 6 rows of good quality tents under like carports?
Yeah.
Type. And then there's a guard shack, and then there's outhouses and shower houses, and just really great setup. I actually looked at the guys and was like, man, I would live here if all of our friends could just live here in this little community. But I'm pretty low maintenance when it comes to living expenses. Anyways, so they gathered all the people, all these homeless veterans, and we got to sit and watch Sergeant Q do a 15-20 minute encouraging life coaching, motivational speech on mental health and his journey with his mental health and with his homelessness that he's experienced. And then he opened it up to the panel, me and Nick Johnson and Marcus Cola, and we just kind of naturally exchanged conversation and gave our stories to these veterans. And it was a really, really good experience. It was amazing. It was so beautiful. At one point, Nick Johnson said to these homeless veterans, he said, I don't know how often you guys hear this, but we care about you a lot. Mm-hmm. And we came out here because we care, and we've been there, and we're here for you. And I looked around, and I thought, really, when is the last time any of those guys or gals, because there was a few gals there, heard that coming from somebody's mouth? It really touched me that moment. And so it was an incredible experience.
Yeah, it was really impactful. When they asked me to come out and speak, I was like, yeah, of course, of course I'll do that. And the more I thought about it, I thought, I'm going to be able to connect with these guys because I've been homeless a couple times, once as a child and then again as an adult. I've struggled with mental health and alcohol abuse, all of those things, so I can connect with these guys. But the more I thought about it, I was like, there's some really awesome people in my organization that could connect with them as well on a different level. And so when I looked at the different veterans from my organization, I chose 3 that I thought could really connect on a level that I could. One would be as a female. So there were a lot of female veterans in this encampment that Jess, you can connect with a lot better than I could.
Sure.
Marcus Cola, he has a different journey. And so he's now a business owner. And so he can connect with these guys on a different level. Nick Johnson, same thing. So I tried to create a diverse panel of people. So to be able to connect with the different demographics that were there represented. And so I think that turned out really, really well. And then during the panel, I just kind of moderated, just asked some real softball questions in the beginning, and then they got progressively harder, these questions, to really try to connect with these guys. And I think it went over really well.
Yeah, I did too.
After it was over, a lot of them came up and wanted to connect with us personally, wanted to talk and share things. And so one of the really cool things that I saw happen there was a female that worked with your unit, the Lioness, over in Iraq. So talk a little bit about that if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get into too tender or something. But.
No. Yeah. So, Aaron and all of his wonderful abilities under his sleeve made this flyer, and I'm sure Casey and his wonderful abilities will be able to show this beautiful flyer on this episode. And under my name, it said, Jessica Bergens, licensed mental health counselor or therapist, Lioness, combat medic. And so this female homeless lady saw that I was a Lioness, and so she wanted to make sure she was there for it because she had some experience with some Lionesses. And possibly herself, she struggled with quite a bit of PTSD, so she can't necessarily remember if she had participated in it. And after us talking, and you can be so traumatized that you forget stuff like that.
Yes.
It's so real. I remember a couple of years after I got out, I couldn't even remember what unit I was in. And I felt so stupid. Like, oh, people are going to think I've stolen valor. People are going to think I'm making this stuff up because I literally could not remember the unit I was in when people would ask me. And so just, being a soft place for her to land when she didn't remember. But the fact that you can tell that she was in Iraq, that she was there in those years that she said she was there. And it was a super special moment to be able to connect with another female that was over there. And that, she came because she wanted to hear my story, which was really cool. And I was able to connect her with some resources that really helped change my life. And so if I never see her again, I never hear from her again, my prayer is just that I was able to just plant a seed of hope for her, and that me and my growth that I've experienced, being able to talk now out loud about my experiences, if it could just help one other female veteran, I'm like, yes, cool. So
that was awesome. I watched that connection happen. And so it was really cool to be outside of that and see that not only were they in the same theater of war, but they also shared the same battle space. And so it's just one more level of connection there.
Yeah.
And I know that guys who are like, oh yeah, I served in the Marines. It's like, great. There's a connection. It's like, oh, I served in Iraq. It's like, awesome. And I served in OIF 1, Operation Iraqi Freedom 1. And I'm like, okay, that's my theater.
Yeah.
Right. So it's in the military, and then the Marine Corps, and then in Iraq, and then in the same theater that I was in. And then they say, oh yeah, I was in these different places. I've been to Al Mazariya and Baghdad, and the Roku site where we lost a bunch of guys on the Tigris. So all of those different things, it's just another level of connection, which is really cool.
Well, and it's like little jolts of healing for me too, right? So I hear these stories, like my mom is a RN, emergency room charge nurse, and she got a Marine veteran once. She obviously HIPAA, she couldn't tell me any information except for that he was there for mental health issues. And when she told him that her daughter was a combat medic, a lioness. They got to talking and found out when I was stationed in Ramadi and he was stationed in Ramadi in the same year.
Mm-hmm.
And he was at a camp just outside of Ramadi. And when he found out I was there at that same time, my mom got a little healing because he started crying. And he was like, your daughter must be tough. Because I was there. And
in case you'll bleep that out. It's okay.
Tough. I said tough.
I know, but now you're ruining it. It's fine. He'll bleep it out anyway. Make it look awesome.
Oh! I get it. Okay, so
it's okay.
It's okay. I tell my soccer players when they say stuff like that, "You're so pretty."
I don't think it would be the same if I did
you can't tell me that. It's fine. Okay, bleep all this.
Reset. So healing.
Okay. It's super like little jabs of healing, even for my mom, for me, like seeing that other female absolutely I'm not glad she's on the streets. Absolutely I'm not glad that she's hurting right now. And to connect with her and know that we have hurt on the same level is healing for me, if that makes any sense.
It does, because you're not alone in that. It's like, okay, I don't need to tell you my pain. Yeah. You intrinsically understand it. Exactly. Because we shared all, the military, the army, the theater, the battle space, right? Like all of those things. It's a connection on a different level. Yeah. And so when we share our stories and we're vulnerable to people and we talk about those things, those are those connection points that happen, right? Because if you weren't willing to be vulnerable and come, she wouldn't have come either. And she wouldn't have heard any of those other stories, right? Yeah. She came just because she felt like she had a connection point with you. And so it's just crazy. When I went and spoke it just reminds me of this. When I went and spoke at the Choctaw Nation, I got invited to go out there and speak at one of their mental health conferences. And when I went and I did my presentation. I had some books. And one of the ladies comes up to me at the end and she's like, hey, I follow you on social media. I'm like, oh, great. That's fantastic. I was figuring that she saw a flyer. So she started following me. So how long have you been following me? She's like, I don't know, about 4 years now. I was like, oh, wow. I said, how did you hear about this? She goes, well, from your social media. I saw that you were going to be here. So she traveled like 2 hours just to come to connect with me on that point. And I was like, wow, that was incredible. It was amazing. I brought Erica Kelly. So Command Master Sergeant Erica Kelly, she came. She was the Command Master Sergeant of the Air Force Reserve. So worked at the Pentagon, top of the top. Yeah. And she just happens to be a good friend of mine. I don't know why, but she is.
I don't either.
I'm nobody special. And she's like...
wonderful lady.
Yeah, incredible, very accomplished woman. She came with me to speak to the female veterans during that time. And when the Choctaw Nation put that out there, that they were going to have Erica come and who she was. And this was a female-only veterans event. And so originally they wanted me to come and speak to all females. And I was like, I could, but I know somebody who would be better fit. Mm-hmm. So I brought her in and she came in and spoke. And there were women that drove with their whole families. Like you're talking 3 generations of veterans, females in one family, drove like 4.5 hours across the state just to come and see her for that connection point. Yeah. And so that's the power that each one of us have to connect with other people. So I think it's so powerful.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So Fob Hope was a great experience. I'm glad you came. Yeah. And maybe we'll have the other guys on at some point. Yeah. Nick, and because we're talking about bringing in a guest, right? So we'll do that at some point.
When those kind of experiences for me are so rewarding because I tell people, gratitude, gratefulness, thankfulness, those can't be taught. I hear parents telling, I've said this analogy before, eat all your food, they're starving kids in Africa. Like it goes in one ear, out the other for kids. And so I try to intentionally share experiences with my kids and with myself to remind me to be grateful, to remind me to be thankful. And so being able to be a part of those experiences remind me where I've come from, where I used to be, and to never think I've made it, right? And to remind me, like, I want to get connected with Terry and Jessica there and bring my kids.
Right.
And make, like, with my kids on one Saturday, make 35 sandwiches and just bring them and show my kids the love of Jesus, spreading love and serving a community like that. With no cameras, no nothing, just to share that experience with my kids so that they can have memories growing up of like, yeah, my mom always took us to serve. especially veterans, because that's just my heart, single moms and veterans. So it was, I went home and I wrote down a couple of ideas that have been mulling for me to do with my kids, and that I added that one to the list.
Oh, that's a great
That was so cool.
That's awesome. So before we did Fob Hope, you were actually at a mental health conference.
Yeah.
And so tell me about that. What was the conference and what were you doing there?
Yeah. So every year as a licensed mental health counselor, I have to have a certain amount of CEUs, so continuing education units.
So that means additional translation time. So that means she has to do ongoing training. So if you're in the trades or something like that, you have to go and get new certifications. You have to update your safety training, things like that. That's what mental health counselors have to do as well.
Yeah. And so one thing I've always been really interested in is nutrition and mental health, because in my mental health journey, when I'm at my worst and my darkest place, I'm usually eating crappy, really crappy. And then that makes me feel crappier. Right. And it's just this like downward spiral of crappiness. And so I've noticed in my own walk that when I'm eating healthier and when I'm eating more nutritious foods and I have a more stable exercise, diet, daily routine in life, I do better mentally. And so this training came up, and my mom is a nurse and she needs CEUs, and nurses could get CEUs from this training as well. And so she's so smart. She doesn't really need to know anything else in life. So I was like, hey, you want to do this with me? We can stay in a hotel downtown Seattle. We had a great time, but the information was so good and life-changing for me. A lot of it I knew because I've studied it on my own, kind of like how you studied a lot of the stuff on your own. But now I will have the certification to be able to compare my clients' labs with their nutrition and things like that, and help them get on supplements or lead them to a functional doctor to help them get on supplements, so that, right? Because we're mind, body, spirit individuals. God made us emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And so we have to, and that's one thing me and Aaron really vibe on, is that whole person.
Yeah.
And nutrition is huge, and routine in our body is huge. And so I learned a ton of really great stuff. So
what do you think was your number one takeaway from that weekend? Like the number one thing, like tip or number one thing that you could share with the audience? Like the most important thing, what would it be?
I would say the research shows that your nutrition levels affect your mental health, period. And the story, it's kind of like gravity. You don't have to believe in it, but if you jump off a building, you're going to fall. I mean, there's no way to really go against all the research and facts and science that shows that what you eat affects your mental health. And so I would just ask people to at least be open to learning about it.
So put good in, get good out.
Yeah. Right. So. And not just nutrition, right? We talked about circadian rhythms, right? And
so circadian rhythm is your sleeping patterns, how you sleep.
Daily and nightly patterns and things. And this is cool because I'm getting all these ideas. I'll do blogs on it and stuff like that people can go to and learn more about, or other videos that I can put together. I'm doing a maladaptive coping.
So maladaptive coping, break that down. So maladaptive.
We talk about this.
Like
I'm stupid.
Poor
coping skills. So I have
poor coping. Yeah. So when you deal with situations and it turns out really bad, that's maladaptive coping skill. It's something that is negatively affecting the outcomes, right? So if something happens to you and then you have a negative response to it, and then your outcome becomes more negative, basically, right? Maladaptive.
Yeah. So it means like anytime your body or your mind or your anything experiences stress, how do you cope with it? Do you cope with it in a positive way or a negative way?
Right. So a negative way would be like, I feel stressed out, I'm going to go drink myself silly, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I used to do.
Or eat 16 bowls of cereal. Or there's so many different addictions and negative coping. So I'll call it negative coping skills.
There you go.
And so I'm doing a series with about 15, 16 ladies on negative coping skills in regard to nutrition and health. And so I was able to share a whole bunch of stuff that I learned with these women. And it was like, they were like, this is the best one yet. And so maybe I can like share the slideshow with people publicly. You guys can help me figure out how to
so I wonder if other people, if our viewers saw this and wanted to join a group.
Yeah.
So we'll put a link at the bottom. If you guys are interested in that, we'll put a sign up for you guys, and Jess can lead you guys through that as well. Cool. So if that interests you, we'll put some links at the bottom. We can click that, and then you can send an email to Jess. And then when she gets enough people on that roster, go ahead.
We'll do a course.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, sounds great.
Yeah.
And is it you do this just for women or men as well?
I would like to eventually branch out to men. Sure.
Okay. So just women only for these ones right now.
Yeah. Or what I'll do is do a women only and a men only is how I would.
Sure. We'll start with the women only first, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Perfect. So just the ladies this time, and then when the next one's on the roster, we'll tell the guys, and then they can jump on it.
Perfect.
How's that?
Perfect.
All right. Don't want to overwhelm you with,
Thank you.
all the 100,000 subscribers, emailing you at once. So, thanks. All right. So the next thing we want to talk about is this idea of the negative bias, and so this really kind of leads into, I think, the maladaptive coping skills, right? The negative bias. And so I know we've talked about it a little bit on some of the previous podcasts, but we really want to kind of just do a deep dive into what the negative bias is, why it works, how it works, all of those things. So we've talked about it before, and you'll hear us continue to talk about it because it's just so important. It's something that naturally occurs in our mental health state, and we just don't even notice it because it happens all the time. So once you become aware of this and critically aware, it changes the way you perceive the world. Yeah. And so you'll hear us talk about this idea of negative bias in multiple ways, multiple times. And so the negative bias basically is when you have a negative experience with a person or a place, anytime that it changes your perception of that person. And so if Jessica and I have a negative interaction, it's going to take us 5 to 7 positive interactions just to get back to normal. Not even to build relationship or build camaraderie, but just to get back to neutral. Yeah. And so think about this like with your own friends and family. Think about a friend that you had that was close that's no longer a friend. And if you really think about that, you go back and say like, well, what happened? And there's going to be a catalyst of where that relationship changed. Something happened. They said something. They did something. They let you down. Something happened that caused you to shy away from them a little bit. Mm-hmm. And what happens with that negative bias, when that negative thing happens, if you don't intentionally seek out positive interaction with that individual, your brain, every time you think of them, they'll remember that negative experience. And then your brain will say, well, what other negative experiences have you had with that individual? And then you'll just kind of get on this wheel that we call stuck on stupid, where you just continue to think about this individual in a negative light because your brain, your subconscious is just the storehouse of all of your memory. And so it will say, oh, you talked about this, you're thinking about this person and this negative interaction. So let's show you all these other things that they did. And it just creates this snowball effect, and then it damages relationships. Yeah.
And so, it's not necessarily just with people, right?
Right.
And so
places.
Yeah. And so I've read a couple of researches on this. I was or watched some TED Talks, really. I hate reading. And one research I saw was 2 groups. One group, and maybe we've talked about this before. We get edited out if we have. But one group is told about a surgical procedure for something medical, right? And group A is taught 70% success rate. Group B is taught 30% failure rate, right? Same statistics presented differently. Group A is like, yeah, let's do it. Group B is like, no, let's not. Same statistics, same outcomes, just presented differently. Then they twist it up and then add to that same group A, yeah, there is 70% success rate, but there's a 30% failure rate. Do you still want to do it? And most of them turn and change their mind and say no. And then group B, they're like, okay, well, let's try to change their mind to yes. And so they say, yeah, there's a 30% failure rate, but there's a 70% pass rate. Group B still says no. Mm. So they get stuck in the negative, which is human nature. And there's research after research after research to show that that's where our minds go. And that's kind of why I brought this. Okay. This isn't like a...
So what is that? What did you...
This is called a happiness journal. Mm. Okay. And I didn't even know you came up with one.
Yes.
But another study shows that if you took 100 people, group 1 did, for a year or 2, they did intentional gratitude things every day. And they had a 25% less chance of mental health challenges than the group that didn't do anything gratitude-wise. So like the research shows keeping a gratitude and positive mindset, like glass half full mindset, affects many things in your life.
It's kind of like lifting weights for your brain,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
If you want to get stronger, you've got to lift weight, and then you've got to lift heavier weight. And so the gratitude journal is that mental exercise and that's where the healing through service really comes in, right? Like you go and help other people. You write that down in your journal of these positive things that you've done to help other people. And then when you're feeling low, when you're feeling down, you're going to have an easier time overcoming that because you'll remember the positive things. Yeah. But what's more important is when you journal it in something like this, then it's there.
Yeah.
And so I keep that myself. And so when people send me emails says, hey, your book really touched me, or hey, this really helped me, thank you for this, I keep all of that stuff. So on those days that I'm struggling with mental health, I'm like, I'm failing at this. I am not really helping people. I should just quit. I go back and I look at all of those people. And those are just the people who reached out to me, right? Like how many more of those people are out there that never reached out that I was able to touch and help in some way. And so...
And one thing you said yesterday during your motivational speaking to the homeless vets is how crazy it is. Not crazy. We shouldn't be alarmed at this point, but how much scripture aligns with the research in that area for us. I can list 10 scriptures that say, fix your mind on things above, positive things. Yep. Think upon things that are holy and just and true and honorable. And even seek first the truth, right? Because we get in these negative biased spirals where we're hyper focusing on the what ifs and the negative things that could happen when the Bible is very clear to think of things that are true and honorable and good. And so that's why I love the research supports the scripture. And that's been 2,000 years.
Yeah. And for me, I didn't grow up in the church, as a Christian. I went to a couple of youth groups when I was a teenager. But maybe a half a dozen of these things. I didn't really grow up with any kind of religious foundation at all.
Yeah.
And so my mental health journey was I started reading these mental health journals and these research studies at the same time that I was reading and learning scripture. And I was like, these are the same thing. Yeah. I don't know if I could have learned it any other way.
Yeah.
And so cool. Everything that I taught myself and now that I teach to other people is that same thing where here is this concept that we're talking about. Here's what science says. And oh, by the way, scripture's been telling us this for thousands of years. Yeah. And it's just, it was incredible to me when I was first realizing this. Yeah. And now kind of the same thing. It's like this aha moment for a lot of people where they're like, oh, wow, I've read the Bible for years. And I never realized it like that, So it's really cool. Or for those people who are like me, who are unchurched, who don't know anything about scripture or religion and anything like that. It's a pathway for them to kind of consider that, like, oh wait, science is proving this, and this ancient text has been telling us this. Yeah. What else could it tell us? Right? Yeah, and so it's pretty cool.
I love how you say it to people, even unbelievers. You don't have to be a believer. Look at the Bible as a historical book because it is it's been proven research that's a historical book, and it still aligns with what science and psychology is proving today. So
they've done tons of historical studies on it. And they can prove the stories in there. And then, like I said, science, is proving the theory, basically. A lot of the parables and things like that that are being taught. Yeah. And now science is like, oh my gosh, that's exactly how the brain operates. Which, how could they have known that, right?
Exactly.
Because it was divinely inspired. Yeah. So, it's incredible when you start to look deep into, both of those, the science and the scripture, and how they just meld. It's pretty incredible. Yeah. So I love that part. So with the negative bias, we have to really be conscious to overcome that. Like we have to be
intentional.
There you go. We have to be very intentional with this. So when we have a negative experience with somebody and we value that relationship, we must be intentional to overcome it. So how do we do that? Well, number one is asking yourself, is this relationship valuable? Because sometimes they're not, right? Yeah. Sometimes they're toxic and you're like, okay, I just got to cut this off. Sure. So some people are not worth investing in, right? And so we have to really think about that when it comes to how much mental energy are we going to put on this relationship. But if it is a relationship that is valuable to you, there are some things that you can do to overcome that negative bias. Number one is to remind yourself of why you're in that relationship with that person. It could be a brother, a sister, a friend. It could be a family member. It could be a spouse. But why did you originally get into that relationship? what are some of the positive things that you appreciate about this person? But you have to have that conscious conversation with yourself. Like, okay, brain, this person did this thing and it really frustrated me. Show me 10 things that I appreciate about this person, and recall those memories and think about that and set on it for a minute. It's almost like meditation, but you're intentionally trying to draw up positive memories about that individual. And so I do this exercise on a regular basis, so much so now that when something bad happens or tragic or negative happens, my brain already knows, like, okay, what good could come out of this?
Yeah.
People say it all the time, what's the silver lining? Making lemonade out of lemons, right? So these are all common phrases that we hear in our society, but what does that really look like? What does that really mean? And so now with my mental health journey, I've learned how to kind of do that automatically now, where I just condition my brain to find these positive things. And I tell people, what you look for, you're going to find more of.
Yeah.
So a great example of this would be if you were shopping online and you Google a weed eater on Amazon, right? And then boom, Facebook is blowing you up with ads for weed eaters. Instagram is hitting you up with people working weed eaters, in their reels. TikTok is showing you reviews for weed eaters. So, it just kind of, you get inundated with that, right? Because the algorithm says, oh, you're searching for a weed eater, so let me show you all these other weed eaters that are out there. That's exactly how our brain operates too.
Exactly. It's like when you buy a new car.
Yes, I wrote about that in my book.
I know.
So yeah, if you pick up my book, we won't go into it, but if you pick up my book, I tell that story, like a great story of how when you buy a new car, and then you start to see it everywhere. So I won't go into the story, but yeah, it's really cool.
Everybody knows it.
Yeah, it's in my book, Healing Through Service. It's one of the examples that I use. And when you read through it, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, yeah, I do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, the negative bias is something we're all going to have to deal with. And especially if you work with the public, your prevalence of having negative interactions is a lot higher. So being able to make sure you don't get stuck in that negative bias, and then that's where like things like racism and sexism and all those things kind of derive from, is that negative interaction. So we can overcome that. All right, Jess. So let's go through this exercise. I love to do this with veterans. It's one of my favorite things to do. And so think of a time that you had trouble with leadership. Could be leadership, could be in the military, out of the military, and how that negative bias really kicked in. So think about somebody you had an issue with, but you valued the relationship. Yeah. And so we will work through one of that. So this will be a real person, real situation. So if you think she's talking about you, she might be. Here we go.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Jess. So you wanted to meet with me today. You said that there's somebody who is in charge or in leadership that you were having some conflict with, but you did value the relationship, and so you wanted to try and work through it. So how can I help? Tell me what happened.
I was a part of a ministry event, I guess, and it was at like the very beginning stages of my mental health growth journey, and I was incredibly vulnerable and incredibly broken. And honestly, my marriage was incredibly broken as well. And so, it was just like, I was just at a pretty low place. And in this voluntary ministry situation, my dysfunction in my own life, I feel like possibly projected onto the voluntary experience and the leadership of this situation.
So what you'd mentioned to me before, that there were some negative things that happened. So what did this leader do that caused this distress?
Well, there was a couple leaders in this ministry that I felt handled things in a toxic way. There was a lot of slandering and gossiping about the main leader behind their back. And I was kind of caught in that. I was uncomfortable with that. My husband was uncomfortable, because anybody who knows my husband, he doesn't, especially 8 years ago, doesn't take direction from other men and women very well. He's much better now. And so I, like as a spouse, I have that innate nature to want to stand up for him and protect him. And I have that bias, right? And I also had a bias towards the leaders, the main leaders, because the other leaders were talking crap about them. And I felt like I was in this whirlwind of dysfunction when I myself was so vulnerable and broken that it just I felt like I was getting crushed.
So what I heard you say was that you felt like some of the leadership there was really toxic, and that there was a lot of infighting, that there was a lot of slander either about you or directed toward you, and that you felt like you had to be on guard to protect your husband from some of these negative interactions that were happening.
Yeah, what was interesting, it was never the slander. It wasn't, I never heard of the slander or gossip about me. It was about other people.
I understand.
And I felt, right, I was pulled in the direction of feeling like I needed to stand up for my husband on one side, and then feeling like this is very toxic for the leaders, the main leaders of this organization, because their sub leaders are bashing them when they're not around. And it's just I don't do well in dysfunction. I grew up in a very functional home. We talk healthy when we have problems. We sit down. Okay, how are you feeling? I didn't grow up with slander. I didn't grow up with gossip. I didn't grow up in a toxic environment. And so when I'm put into that, I flounder.
So I heard it was toxic. There was a lot of slander about others. You felt like you had to protect your husband. You felt it was very dysfunctional. And so those are four really big negatives to be part of this organization, to do these ministry opportunities. I wonder what are some positive things that you can remember that. Well, first, let me ask you this question: are these opportunities something that you would like to continue to do?
Yeah,
I think there's value there.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if you think there's value, maybe tell me a few things that you appreciated or that were valuable that came out of that opportunity.
Oh yeah. My life was changed. I made lifelong friendships, and God moved mightily in my healing process. I got so much healing through serving the family, through serving on this missions field. I left that there was still so much positive from the education of this program that it started the journey for my husband to start learning about veterans with PTSD, and his journey of learning to not make it worse, but soften it for me a little bit started. And from that comes hundreds of positive things, right? There's so many positive things that came from that weekend. You want me to keep going?
So you gave me 7 really good examples.
Okay.
And that's great. That's a great start. So we have what's we call a negative bias, right? So you had a negative interaction. And so for every one of those negative interactions, we need 5 to 7 positive ones just to get back to neutral. Not even to build a relationship or to build value in our mind, but just to get to neutral. So in order to get to neutral for you, we'll just say 6. So you had to give me 4 really negatives, big negatives, times 6, that's 24. And so you've given me 7 already. So we need, I don't know, quick math. We need a few more, right? So 17 more, 16 more. What is it, Casey? We need a few more.
24 minus 6. 18.
Minus 7.
So 17.
17. Right. So we need 17 more.
That's my favorite number.
Perfect.
Let's do it.
So what are some other positives that came out of that?
I got a deep foundation of wanting to serve for my own healing. I made incredible friendships with people I would have never gotten close to. I got closer to my husband on a more emotionally intimate level.
That's good.
I established relationships with people that were worth it to fight for that relationship, that I'm friends with to this day and are a huge advocate for me and support system for me. I made relationships with homeless people that still to this day impact my life in being grateful and thankful for the things that I have. That was the first Memorial Day weekend in 9 years at that point that I didn't get drunk, and I haven't gotten drunk on Memorial Day since. So that's
Wow.
eight positive things that came from
amazing.
that. It was the foundation of teaching me to learn better coping skills for what was going on in my body, in my mind. It established camaraderie with other veterans that struggled the same way that I struggle on so many levels. It opened my husband's eyes and helped him become friends with some of those veterans so that when he didn't understand me, he could go to them. And that has impacted our marriage still to this day. I'm sure we're at way more than
Okay, two more.
Two more. Oh gosh. Okay.
Tell me a little bit about compassion. Like, how did it?
Oh yeah. It gave me a lot more compassion for veterans that didn't deploy.
Oh, yes.
Because I saw their heart and their struggle they don't feel worthy of any accolades for being a veteran. When I saw their heart, and in an instant, they would have been on the front lines right there with me. They just weren't called at the time I was called. And so I got a super deep compassion for non-deployed veterans and what they go through. Kind of like a survivor's guilt. And that has helped me be able to counsel now in the stage of life that I'm in other veterans. I can't tell you, I've had probably 5 or 6 veterans say, no, I don't want her to be my therapist because she's a combat veteran. And I've had to have a conversation with them before they decline me as their therapist to tell them, I want to see you. The things you have been through are real. And there's at no point am I judging you for not being deployed. And then since then, all of them have booked with me and we've gotten a lot of work done together. And so, did I give you 2 more?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fantastic. So tell me a little bit about Jessica. How do you feel now? So when you first started, I know this is an old situation, but it probably drew up some of those thoughts, feelings, and emotions.
Yeah.
Right in the beginning. So tell me a little bit about how you felt when we started, and you started remembering the negative pieces.
I'll be honest with you. Maybe the right answer would be I felt sad or bad, but I feel so good because the people that were toxic are not in my life anymore. And I thank God for that. And the people that God determined to still be in my life are still in my life today. And I was able to work through things with them that made us stronger, that taught me resiliency with relationships. It taught me that, because back then I was the kind of person, my PTSD and stuff was so bad that I screwed off all of my relationships. I messed them up because that's what we do. We push people away because we don't want to get close. And it's too hard to work through the hard things. So we just let them go. And so the ones that I did have to learn to let go, I'm super thankful for that. And the ones that I had to work through things with, I'm super thankful for that. So
what was it like recalling those memories versus then going through all the positives? Right?
Oh, sure. Well, yeah, the negative parts are always going to be a source of a little bit of pain, right? But then I didn't even realize I've never walked through this negative bias practice with this situation. I know inside my heart that good things came from it, but I didn't know how many good things came from it. And so that's really awesome to see all the amazing things that came from it, which makes sense of why I'm still good friends with these people.
Yeah. And so that's really it right there, is how Jessica and I just went through this really in-depth situation that both of us experienced, because who she was talking about was actually me, right? So I'm the leader in that organization. I'm one of the leaders there. And it was a rough time for Jessica and I both, and our spouses too, right? So there was definitely some friction there, but we've learned to work through it.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, recalling that, like, oh, I knew that there's positive that came from it, but when you sit down and you actually take account of that, you're like, wow. And what that does in your brain is it it overcompensates, not overcompensates, but
Mhm.
overcomes those negative experiences.
Yeah.
When you can push all those positive ones to the forefront, it lessens those negative ones.
Yeah.
And so this is great with your spouse. You can do this as well. Like when your spouse
Mhm.
is like, oh, like my wife, she just ran the car out. She gave me the car and it was on empty. And I'm like, oh, makes me nuts. And I'm like, okay, hold on. And I had to remember all the positive things that I remember about my wife. And by the time I got into like 2 or 3 or 4 of those, I'm like, that's fine. I can get to the gas station.
Yeah.
And before that I would be flipped out.
Yeah.
Because in Iraq, you run out of gas, you're dead.
Yeah.
And so it just, I read about that story in my book too. I'm not my proudest moment, I'll tell you that. But that's what used to happen to me. But now, because I've learned to do this exercise with myself,
yeah, that's so good.
that I can overcome it really easy. It's kind of automatic now, where I don't have to think about it too much. In the beginning, it was really difficult, but now it's kind of on auto mode.
Yeah.
Where I do this practice with myself. So
Yeah.
we went through that really long process of the negative bias and what that looks like with the real situation that we've both experienced together. So I hope that adds value to your guys' day. I hope that you can see that we're trying to be vulnerable here. We're trying to just show you this is our life. This is not scripted. It really happened. We didn't sit there and plan out like, what are we going to say for an hour? No, we just said, hey, let's talk about this incident. Let's talk about the negative bias. And we started actually with a different story. And then we stopped and said, no, it needs to be something more personal, more us. And so we said, well, let's talk about our own negative experience and what that looked like and how we overcame it. And so we do that because we want to be real and authentic with you guys and have you see that here on camera, because we hope that it helps you guys.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Jess, for talking about Bob
Thank
Hope,
you. Yeah.
which is incredible. So I want to share with you guys one of the messages that just came through, actually, and I'll share this with you guys. This is from the director of Bob Hope.
Oh, cool.
So she texted me and she said, hey, man, I'm getting a lot of great feedback regarding your visit yesterday. I truly appreciate you. Are you willing to do it again sometime?
That's
right?
awesome.
So, Jess, are you willing to do it again?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there we go. So, yes, we will be back down at Bob Hope and we will be helping out again. So that was pretty cool. That just came in.
That's awesome.
We talked about new advancements, nutrition, and mental health. So if you guys want to go through that, what are you going to call it? A series, a session?
Yeah.
What are you going to call it?
Negative coping skills with nutrition and health group.
So if you want to go through the group with Doc Jess here.
Yeah. Not Dr. Jess.
Not Doctor.
Doc.
Doc. Because in the military, we call medics Doc. That's just what we do. So she's Doc Jess. But when we get to 100,000 subscribers, she's already promised that she's going to put in her package for her doctorate. So then she really will be Dr. Bergens, not Doc Jess anymore. You get an upgrade. That was a little medal right there. Mm-hmm. So we talked about nutrition. If you want to sign up, there's going to be a link. You can sign up, get in that next class. We also talked about the negative bias, and we went really deep and in depth in this one, you guys. So I hope you appreciate it. And as always, we really want to educate you on mental health, empower you to take control of your mental health journey, and encourage you along the way. So I'm Sergeant Q, and this is Doc Jess, helping clean up the mess in your head.